This is what everyone is talking about, the 2-inch subwoofer from B2 Audio. And in the last video of this series, we built an enclosure for 4 of these tiny little replicas. But in this video, we're gonna build a 6-order Bandpass. So hang in there with me as I design, 3D model, and assemble this tiny enclosure. Because when we're finished, we're gonna pump some sounds through them.
It feels so good. Baby, it's understood. It feels so right, honey, to keep pushing into the night. Oh, it feels so good.
B2 Audio designed this subwoofer for the RC world. It's even indicated in the name, RC2. And in the RC world, there's a genre of class of RC called the scaled models. And everything in that class pretty much had to look as lifelike as possible. So when designing this subwoofer, B2 Audio went all out with it. I mean, just look at it. It's packaged like a regular size subwoofer. It has a lot of foam packaging and material like a regular size subwoofer. It even has plastic on it like you would find on a regular size subwoofer, meaning that they're really trying to leave an impression here. But it doesn't just stop with the packaging. It has a high roll surround like a regular subwoofer, a cast aluminum basket like a regular subwoofer, linear roll spider, direct leads, triple stack magnet, and venting on the magnet piece. This thing is real as it get for something this small. And if it is real that they're going for, then it is real that I'm going to give them, because I'm going to treat this just like any other product review. Let's move on to measurements. The RC2 have a complete mounting depth of around 2¼ inches, and it has a total height of 2½ inches. As you guys can see, it does come equipped with 3 slugs for the magnet assembly. Each slug is approximately 1/4 inch in thickness, giving the magnet a total height of 3/4 inch. The rear of the RC2 has a vent hole there that seems to be about 3/16 of an inch, and the complete width of the magnet assembly seems to be around 1 3/4 of an inch. Right now what we want to do is measure the basket height. The basket height seems to be about 1 1/8 of an inch. Right now we're trying to measure the dust cap. The dust cap seems to be about 1 inch in total. And if we were to be measuring from the center of the surround, you're talking around 1½ inch. And the total diameter of the entire face of the subwoofer is 2 inches. Now we're going to measure the direct leads of the RC2, which seems to be about 6 inches or so. A few days ago, I put out a poll asking you guys, which tiny enclosure would you want me to build for the 2-inch subwoofer? I asked you guys, would it be the 4th order Bandpass, the 6th order Bandpass, or the bass tube? And out of 845 votes, an overwhelming majority said the 6th order Bandpass. So, since the majority is 56%, next up we'll be building a 6th order Bandpass. Alright, so right now we over here in WinISD, and as you guys can see, I already got my my little subwoofer loaded over here. This is the Rampage RC2, and if we go to edit over here, you guys will see that the parameters for this subwoofer has already been preloaded. When you are doing your own project, you would have to come here and do all these things manually. Just know that you can see that the entries for the parameters here are both green and blue. That's because anything that's auto-calculated for you is going to be in a blue color, and anything that you manually enter is going to be green in WinISD. As you guys can tell, you only have to enter a few green items or a few manual items, and everything else populates for you. This is one of the beautiful things about working within WinISD Pro. All right, moving on, you guys can see that the configuration for the subwoofer here is just a standard configuration. If you wanted to, we could do isobaric, which I do have a upcoming project with some isobaric configurations, but for now we're just doing a standard baffle mount here. And as you guys can see on screen, you have your response curve here. This is your transfer magnitude graph that you're looking at, and this graph is also by default whenever you come into WinISD. And next up is going to be the box tab. This is a 6th order bandpass. It has information for both your rear chamber and your front chamber. You can come up in here and manually enter and manipulate these values, and by manipulating these values, the values of your response curve will also change. We have a box with two chambers, rear chamber and front chamber. Front chamber is going to be 25 cubic inches. Rear chamber is going to be 100 cubic inches with a tuning frequency of 75 hertz, and the front chamber with a tuning frequency of 150 hertz. So this is a 1:4 ratio, or you can say a 4:1 ratio for this enclosure, with a tuning frequency 1 octave apart. All right, so right now we're over here in SketchUp, and what you guys are looking at is an aerial view of the 6th order bandpass that I designed based on the information that we just received over in WinISD. Once again, this is the front chamber, and this entire chamber right here has a center brace in it for the rear chamber. The rear chamber is tuned to 75 hertz, and the front chamber is tuned to 150 hertz. And just to reiterate, this is a 6th order bandpass for a 2-inch driver. Right now, what you guys are looking at is color-coded internal spacing or volume for this enclosure. I wanted to give you guys a visual representation of the 1:4 ratio in which this enclosure is designed upon. Next up, what you guys are looking at is an excerpt of the internal volume for this enclosure. Once again, just to reiterate, you have 25 cubic inches for the front chamber, and you have 100 cubic inches for the rear chamber. And the tunings for these are 150 hertz and 75 hertz. And there's also something I want to share with you guys when using SketchUp. Something that you really want to make sure that you do is you want to make sure that you actually compensate for the displacement of the subwoofer, and that's what you can see in this wireframe right here. That spacing has been removed for the subwoofer displacement in order to accurately count the internal volume for this 3D rendering. Moving on. Right now, what you guys are looking at is the color coding for the port, and the information for the front port is going to be 2.7 cubic inches of displacement with 0.62 square inches of square area or port area. And for the rear chamber, the port displacement is going to be a little bit more. It's 2.9 square inches, and port area is the same as the front chamber with 0.62 inches of square inches of port area. And now we're going to be moving on to wood selection. All right, so next up is wood selection. We already have a design. That design calls for a 1/4 inch MDF. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Headed over to Home Depot, and look like we got a 2-foot by 4-foot piece right here for around $14. Of course, this would be a lot cheaper if I could have gotten a whole sheet, which is 4 by 8 foot, but this is what we're working with, so this is what I grabbed. This is the first cut piece that I made right here. Since the height of this entire enclosure is 2.5 inches, I pretty much made 3 strips of that 4 foot a piece. So basically where I am now is I got all my pieces cut out that was required for these enclosures, and these are the top and bottoms. Now what I have to do is kind of like just mate them to the cut sheets for each individual enclosure. So that's what I'm about to do next. Starting with the 6th order bandpass. Take these little pieces right here, mate them to this cut sheet, and then we're going to do dry assembly for all of them. When it comes to cutting the holes for these enclosures, there are two options you can use. You can use a hole saw, or you can use Forstner bits. In this case, I choose Forstner bits, 2 inches. When using a Forstner bit, you don't want to go all the way through on the first pass. You want to go about halfway, or until the center punch starts to protrude from the other side, and then you cut from the other side. This is your best chances at getting a clean hole without tear out. Right now what you see is dry assembly. Dry assembly is an important step to find any minute differences or mistakes that you may have made during the cutting process. You want to do this now and find the corrections now before you glue everything together. Right now I'm just checking the roundovers that I've done here for my port pieces. Some of this is going to be removed during sanding, so it's a continuous process to make sure that the airflow is optimized inside the chambers. Here's a pro tip for you guys. The next time you put it together in a dry assembly like this, just make some traces on the board that that indicate where the pieces lie, because it makes glue up very, very quick, and it also keeps you within tolerances of like port widths and gaps and things of that nature. So leaving traces on the board, a schematic one would call it, really speeds up the time in which your enclosure gets assembled. Right now what I'm doing, this is the next day, and I'm just inspecting the pieces. These being such small pieces, you definitely want to check the tolerances here. And as you guys can see, as it dried, there was some shifting of the pieces because I didn't use clamps. I just weighted everything down with some paint. And yeah, it looked like I'm going to have to do a lot of sanding in order to clean this up, which is fine with a project this small. Sanding isn't that big of an issue. Of course, in order to sand, you're going to need the tools to do it. This is my Ryobi multi-tool. This is an oscillating tool that has variable speeds. And you can find links in the descriptions below to any tool that I use here within the video. This thing makes quick work of the little small project that I have here. I think I may have spent in totality around 45 seconds or so in order to sand the imperfections from the face of this enclosure. But I also want to give you guys a more budget-friendly option when it comes to sanding. And this Hyper Tough orbital sander from Walmart actually is a good pick. I've had this sander for about 5 years or so. And the only problem I had with it is dust collection. The little one that comes with it is very small. So I hooked a shop vac to it and it works flawlessly. Now it has come time for mounting the B2 Audio RC2. There's a problem here that I ran into that I did not even think of while I was cutting these pieces, which is to go ahead and get your pilot holes drilled for the screws, because right now I cannot get my drill to fit off inside of this thing. So what you're gonna see right now is me attempting to drill a hole here and not being able to do so, but I do have a very clever solution to this issue, and hopefully you guys have find some value in the attachment that I'm finna show you guys right here. This is a right angle attachment by DeWalt. And before I got into this project, I never even knew that they sold such a product. But man, when I tell you it came in handy, it really saved me in this case, because I was gonna have to, pretty much take my baffle out and do this all over again. But because of this little tool right here, I don't have to do that. All right, so next up, what I'm going to be doing is trying to find a solution to secure the acrylic top that I have cut for the 6th order Bandpass. I wanted to be able to secure the top there without using screws or clamps or anything of that nature. So I came up with this foam material it is a double-sided foam tape, approximately 1/16 thickness. So what I'm about to do now is just take my X-Acto knife and I'm going to cut this or divide this strip into 3 parts. And those 3 parts would actually equal to the width of the 1/4 inch material that I'm using to construct the enclosure. Next up, I have to figure out a way in order to connect these to the amplifier. And I have these push terminals laying around from an old subwoofer that I disassembled, and I'm going to repurpose them. As you guys can see, these push terminals have screw ends on them. So I'm thinking in my mind that I can just drill a few pilot holes here and then just drill them right off into the wood. Pro tip here would be to make sure that you pick a drill bit that is slightly smaller than the actual screw end itself, so that you can get it into that hole and hand screw it all the way there. Of course, we're going to need some terminals once we get this thing installed in order to connect to the speaker. And once again, anything I use here in the video, there's an affiliate link for it in the descriptions below. Any purchase made through those affiliate links does help out the channel. Right here, you guys see me using some polyfill inside the chamber. There's two reasons why I did this. For one, this driver actually has a lot of mids and highs that come through that I don't want to translate through the sixth order, because this is going to be my bass portion of my setup. And secondly, because if you guys remember during the transfer magnitude graph, this thing has some crazy peaks, and I want to flatten those peaks out a bit. And a good cheap way you can do that is, you know, other than building some crazy crossover network, is just to add acoustic filtering, acoustic stuffing of some type. And a lot of times that'll actually flatten your curve a little bit. The acrylic that I'm using for this is around 1/4 inch thick. It's slightly shy of that, but that's plenty thickness for this small of a project. But what I want to let you guys to see is, you know, as I press here into this material, the double-sided tape there, you can see it actually grabbing onto the glass. And if you're gonna do a project like this, I just wanted to, you know, kind of have you guys pay attention to this, because if all of that doesn't grab onto the glass, you'll have a bunch of air leaks there and your enclosure is gonna sound like crap. Okay, so here we are in the studio, and as you guys can see, I have the 6th order bandpass. It's polyfill. And in the ports, that's tissue. All right, so the thing about a 6th order bandpass is that these two chambers, this is the first chamber, the front chamber, which is tuned very high, and then you got this large chamber over here that's tuned lower, and it's going to activate these ports depending on what frequency is being played by the music. And I want you guys to have a visual indication of what port is being activated, so I put the tissue here, and that's all that is. So when it plays the lower frequency tuning of this port, this is going to be activated and the tissue is going to move. So you may be asking the question of why not just be testing the 6th order bandpass by itself, right? Why am I involving this guy? Well, 6th order bandpass in this configuration is for bass only. Okay, it's not meant for vocals, it's not meant for highs. None of that is gonna transfer through this acoustic filtering. You see what I'm saying? It's gonna sound very muffled and inaudible. So you don't want to hear that. This is for bass only. These ports are tuned for bass only. I'm going to give it some assistance with this bass reflex enclosure because the driver is exposed. Okay, so you got mostly voice coming out of here with a little bass, and you got a lot of bass coming out of this guy right here. So we're just going to see how much, and this will be a real world indicator of how a bass reflex enclosure would work compared to that of a 6th order bandpass enclosure. You're going to see that the bass frequency range of this one is extended a little bit more than what this one here can do. I'm going to play a little bit of country music that I've saved here in my Epidemic Sounds list, and I'll be disconnecting them back and forth. I'll let you know when I disconnect one so that you can hear the other. We're going to start out just playing the bass reflex one so you guys can get a feel for the music, and then I'll add the 6th order bandpass in the mix. So here we go. Alright, so let's move on to the next track. Alright, so this one here is called Trophy Wife. The next one is called All God's Children. This is a more bluesy song, so you may see more of that low end being activated in this one. Here we go.
So you wanna go? seen. Come on, praise now, lift up your voice. Oh, and it feels so good. Maybe it's understood. It feels so right. Just keep pushing into the night. Oh, and it feels so good. Sensing our humanhood. We're invincible, baby. Last of our kind. Praise now, praise now. Lift up your voice, and it feels so good. Baby, it's understood. It feels so right. Just keep pushing into the night. Oh, and it feels so good. Sensing our humanhood. We're invincible, baby. Last of our kind. It feels so good. Baby, it's understood. It feels so right, honey. Just keep pushing.
Thanks for visiting the channel to help you simplify car audio. It's the Budget Basshead, and I'm out.